Hello, everybody. Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Riker, we have a fun podcast here. In this one, lots of analytics, lots of stuff being looked at. And today we're going to break down the most average Toronto Raptors, essentially everything. The most average Raptors players, games played, and all that sort of stuff. And what are you expecting going into this? Because you haven't seen a lot of the numbers and the players that we're going to bring up in this podcast, Riker.
I don't know, Ben. It took you 20 minutes to explain your complex back-end coding stuff, so I'm just here for the ride. I'm going to just respond. I don't know nothing that you're about to bring up.
Word. And for people that are interested, I'll have the code. The code is up on my GitHub. I'll probably have the link in the description of this video. I think it's the only public repo I have up there, so definitely check that out if you're interested in the code. There might be some application that would have made this easier, but I thought this would be fun to sort of code it out myself. But we're going to dive straight into it. The first thing we looked at, Riker, is the number of games played for the average Toronto Raptor. In Raptors history, what do you expect? What do you think is the average number, your average Raptor? What number of games do you think they've played on the Toronto Raptors for the franchise?
I don't know. I'm going to say the average player plays about 2 seasons in the NBA. Two seasons for a particular team.
2 seasons for the Raptors?
Yeah.
You're about double. So the average Raptor player plays about 85 games for the team. So I'm going to throw a distribution of games played, and I just texted this to you if you want to have a look at it. And there's a lot of players, a lot more than I was sort of expecting, just play very minimal games with the team. And I guess it makes sense with all the G Leaguers and the guys that go back and forth and are at the end of the bench. But that number was a lot higher. It's a very left-oriented distribution for games played.
Yeah, well, you sent me the distribution. I was surprised. I mean, even to play one game in the NBA, realistically, is more games than any of our listeners will have ever played or play in the NBA. So we can't knock the guys at the end of the bench on the two-way contracts, Ben. I heard the passive aggressiveness in your tone. We still got to give them credit, but I definitely agree. You'd expect it to be more. You'd expect that, the bulk seems to be on that grid that you sent me. The bulk seems to be at very few amount of games played.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, not passive aggressive, but it was just really surprising. You'd think a player, if they're especially a rookie, they'd last 2 or 3 years, but now we're going to get into the sort of fun stuff and talk about just the average Raptors players and what, if you took a random guy out of a hat, what their stats would be, what the specific numbers, nothing specific, no positions or anything focused on that. And we broke it down. The stats that we used to sort of break down these players is points, assists, rebounds, steals, blocks, fouls, turnovers, and then a few advanced stats that we'll get into. Well, they're important for comparisons after is true shooting, 3-point attempts rate, and free throw rate. So true shooting is essentially like your field goal percentage that takes into account the attempts that the attempts that are from 3, the makes that are from 3, and your free throws. So you can Google. I'll throw the equation that's calculated there. And 3-point attempts rate and free throw rate is just the number of free throws and threes you attempt per field goal. That's just interesting for some things we're going to talk about further, but the average Toronto Raptor player, Riker, if you picked a random one out of a hat, would average 6.17 points per game, 1.39 assists, 2.95 rebounds, average half a steal, a third of a block. They foul 1.7 times per game and get about 1 turnover a game and have a 50%, 49% true shooting. So that's not super high. I guess it makes sense, especially with the distribution of games played. And a lot of guys don't, are guys at the end of the bench, but not high numbers from your average Toronto Raptor player.
Well, Ben, I have a few thoughts here. First of all, just to put context to what you're saying here. So basically, you have the API or something. You have all the data from the NBA, and so you've looked at every single player throughout all of Raptors history. You put them all into some sort of matrix type coding thing, and this is the number that it generates. Just to wrap everybody else's head around what we're saying here.
Yeah, for sure. It's the average. So I took everyone's career averages as a Toronto Raptor. So obviously Chris Bosh's stats with the Heat won't be taken into account, or it's your career averages with the Toronto Raptors team. and they're not normalized. They're not put into a per 36 or per 40 minutes, which I know some people like to do with this sort of stuff. It's just your averages with the Toronto Raptors, and then you just take the mean of all the total averages summed up and divided by the number of players, just like any other regular equation. So it's so your average Toronto Raptor, you take him out of a hat, is averaging 6, 1, and 3, right?
Well, okay, so I have two thoughts. One, it's almost like we're converting the Raptors team to a player, right? Because you could do this for every team in the NBA, and it would give to you basically what if you combined an entire roster together, what would that average be over the history of a team playing? And so it's interesting because that number, it does seem pretty low. You're like 6 points. What's a comparable player that's putting up 6 points? It's like I don't know, like a Chris Boucher? Is he even? Well, he's making more than Riker. 6 points per game.
Riker. So that's what we're taking at next. So what Raptors players kind of fit this average best? Who compares closest to the Raptors average player? Pardon?
Current? Can I make a guess?
Current player?
Yeah, is there anybody in your list that you're about to say that's on the current roster?
I listed the entire franchise.
Okay. No, but I mean of the average players.
Throw a guess out there.
Okay, I'm not gonna. All right, go ahead.
No, throw a guess. Throw a guess.
Oh, I don't know, Chris Boucher. That's who comes to my mind. That or. No, I'm thinking Chris Boucher because you got to go deep bench in order to get 6 points per game.
Yeah. Okay. I have another list in front of me, but you're around the sort of stats areas. You want players that are sort of fit in that figures. I don't have Chris Boucher's stats in front of me, but
I'll pull them up.
We'll break down the. You'll pull them up. Okay. So the four most average players that we have in Raptors history. So the first one, Riker. I didn't know who he was. I've never heard of him. My dad, who's a Raptors fan, obviously much older than I am, knew him. Lamond Murray. Do you know Lamond Murray, Riker?
No, we're about to expose our age by diving into this type of conversation, Ben. I do not know Lamond Murray.
Lamond Murray. Average 6 points per game. Or for the Toronto Raptors, he averaged 6 points per game, averaged 2.7 rebounds, averaged 0.8 assists, turnovers per game. He averaged about 1. So he's right. Averaged 0.2 blocks, averaged 0.5 steals. He's almost right on the money with those average predictions. Lamond Murray, Riker.
Can you hit me with that average stat line again?
The average stat line, I'll throw it back on the screen. 6.1 points. So 6 points, 1.4 assists. 3 rebounds, 0.5 steals, and 0.3 blocks.
Okay. Chris Boucher doesn't fit the mold.
He doesn't fit the mold?
He's at 6.3 points, so we're close there. But like 4.4 rebounds, only 0.4 assists. He's kind of all floppy on the rest of the stats. Continue on.
For sure. And true shooting, 3-point rate, and free throw rate are also kind of incorporated into this to really make the comparisons really tight, and those aren't like in every box score. So it's like the vectors and it's tough to sort of visualize on your own. But Riker, the player that is the second most average in Raptors history, we made a video on him, like our second segment video we ever made.
No
Can
way.
you guess?
Not Andrea Bargnani.
Can you get? No. There's a bromance.
A bromance? What? It's not
DeMar's original bromance.
Oh my God.
Sonny
Bruno
Weems.
Caboclo?
Sonny Weems, bro.
Sonny Weems, dude. We're tracking Sonny Weems through Toronto. Do you remember that? The big reports that Sonny Weems was with Amir Johnson going through Toronto while we were there. Or maybe it was just me, exactly. But we were on the Sonny Weems tracker. You were there.
Well, Sonny Weems is the pinnacle. Second. He's the second pinnacle of Raptors average players. He's pretty high in points. He averages 8.3 points per game, but the rebounds are super close, 2.7, 1.6 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.2 blocks. He's almost right on the money for average players, Riker.
Wow. It's hard to say 8 points is a bit high in points, but again, I challenge you as, to put yourself in an NBA player's shoes. Four baskets a game when you have a lot of really talented players on your team Well, maybe not in the Sonny Weems days. There wasn't a lot of talent on the Toronto Raptors.
Yo, I was
roster.
sure Sonny Weems was going to be Kobe Bryant. I was sure of it.
Who did Sonny Weems play with? Was he the Lennis Kleza, Jose Calderon? Was he those days, or was he even a little bit before their time?
It was the Young Guns. It was, I think, Kleza, he was there, but the core was DeMar DeRozan, Sonny Weems, Amir Johnson, Ed Davis, Jarrett Jack. You remember the Young Guns squad?
Yeah, Jarrett Jack. Was Bosa on the team yet at that point? No, he was before. He was before them.
Yeah, he was earlier, I believe.
He was even earlier than DeMar, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, that's an interesting one.
Barbosa
that's an interesting
was there for a bit, so
that Sonny Weems fits in there.
We could talk about Sonny Weems all day, but we'll quickly go through the next, and I'll have the full list in the description and also throw it up on the screen. But Jeremy Lin is surprisingly the third most average player, considering the season he had last year, and then Gary Forbes is fourth. So if people remember the legend of Gary Forbes in like the half a season he played with us, so a lot of guys that are sort of, I don't want to say forgettable, but didn't have the greatest of stat lines or average. So, and Riker, can you I told you today once I came up with it, the least average player in Raptors history, the furthest from these stats when they're all normalized and all that, ends up being Paul Watson, and it's a mix of guys that are have very, very low stats and guys with very high stats because you want to be the furthest from the mean. So it goes Paul Watson, Kawhi's up there, and then Nigel Hayes. It's really interesting seeing the people that very furthest from the mean player, right?
Well, he's not even. I mean, he's not much of an impact in the NBA. I'll tell you, except for being so far away. Because I search up Paul Watson, and the first guy is a Canadian American marine wildlife conservation and environmental activist, and
Paul Watson's on the team right now.
That is not the guy that I'm picturing that was probably playing on the Toronto Raptors.
Paul Watson's on the squad right now. He had that nasty block before the season went down.
Paul Watson is on the team right now?
Yes.
No, he's not. You're joking.
Yes, he is.
You're joking.
He is on the squad right now. He had a nasty block, bro.
I feel like we're in one of those who he played for episodes, right?
Who he played
but that's
for.
even more embarrassing because they usually pick, they usually pick guys, you'd know their names. You might not know their team, but you'd know their names. This one, I mean, we follow the Raptors religiously, and to not even know that this guy is on the roster that's embarrassing.
Bro, you don't remember that block he had?
No, you could be making up this block. I need a fact check you.
Bro, you don't remember that block. We gotta get people in the comment section, bring it up, letting Riker know. But as brought up, there's a lot of players that only played a few games for this Toronto Raptors team. There's a lot of guys play 1, 2, 3. They're G Leaguers or play on two-way contracts. So we wanted to take into account players that have played at least 50 games for the team, because you want to measure the players that have really integrated themselves, that are memorable to Toronto Raptors fans. So we sort of recalculated these stats, and the average Raptor player that played 50 plus games for the team, throw it up on the screen, is 8.8 points, averages 8.8 points per game, about 2 assists, about 4 rebounds, 0.7 steals, 0.5 blocks, a couple fouls, 1.24 turnovers. Riker, this player looks better. This looks more like your average sort of guy you see playing day to day. But anything that kind of strikes you about
this fella's better than Chris Boucher. Now we're creeping up into, I don't know. Now we're creeping up into like Rondé Hollis-Jefferson territory, Ben.
Ooh, okay. So if you had to predict, because I have this list in front of me, if you had to predict a player on our roster right now that has the most average sort of Raptors career right now, or like in terms of career stats, who would you say? A Rondé or Boucher, or
in terms of career, like career average or career on the Raptors?
Career on the Raptors.
Career on the Raptors. Mm-hmm. It's got to be low bench. It's got to be current Raptor player, because I'm thinking
current Raptor.
DeLon Wright might even fit that mold. Current Raptor, the closest has got to be. I don't know. It's tough because he plays like 22 minutes. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson.
Is he your pick though?
He might be my pick, but it might still be Boucher just because everybody else might be a little bit
Well, Riker
higher.
I'm not sure if
Okay.
Boucher actually makes the cut because I don't really, actually he does. He does make the cut. I see him in the list, but your intuition was right. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson is the highest sort of Raptor player in terms closeness to average on the roster right now, and so you sniped that. If you can guess the second, I will be very impressed. And it's not Boucher.
If I can guess the second closest.
Yep. If you can guess the second
to
closest.
average on our current roster. Oh gosh, who do we run at the backup point? So we play Norm, we play Van Vliet, we play
Terrence Davis,
Kyle, Terrence Davis,
Norman Powell.
So it's not. No, I said Norman Powell. It can't be those guys if you're telling me their names. Yeah, my guess was going to be Terrence Davis, but now you're throwing a wrinkle into my plans. I'll still go with it. I'll go with Terrence Davis.
Terrence Davis? It's actually Pascal Siakam. Surprisingly, in terms of career stats with the Toronto Raptors.
Oh my gosh!
Right, because
yeah,
he had a
season.
He was slow starting off with the team, so he has his stats kind of close there. That was really surprising when the data came up to me. But the most average Raptors players that have played at least 50 games with the team, the number one in Raptors history is James Johnson.
Wow, really?
Yeah, James Johnson is
Really?
the pinnacle for guys that have sort of really integrated themselves with the team. Over his Toronto Raptors career, he averaged 7.6 points. His total rebounds, 3.7 rebounds, 1.7 assists. His he averaged, I can't get the fouls, that's disappeared on me. But he's a guy, and when you look back at sort of Raptors players, you think of guys that have played a good little bit but usually came off the bench. That's who you'd predict averages to be. And when you put it at plus 50 games played, you sort of get guys you'd think of in terms of average NBA players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, we're talking average right now. James Johnson. Mm-hmm. His career earnings are, I mean, this guy, he's what did he just get on the Miami Heat? 3-year, $40 million, something in that range. I mean, before that he was never getting paid much. He was always in that. Yeah, I'm just trying to pull it up now. I believe he was always in that. Yeah, probably that $4 to $5 million range. Actually, he was always in that $1.5 to $2.5 million range. Jeez. It wasn't until he went to Miami Heat that he started really getting paid. But I'll tell you what, to be an average guy, it's just like to be a redshirt quarterback. You ride it out. You're an NBA player. You party with the NBA guys. You train with the NBA guys. You get enough money to live a good lifestyle. And I mean,
you got paid big.
No criticisms there.
For sure. And then it goes the guy that when I started doing this sort of project, it was this guy I sort of thought would be the number one. Corey Joseph is the number 2 average guy in Raptors history. Then it goes Luis Scola. Then it goes a guy named
No way.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. You throw in some input. Then Tracy Murray is the 4th. Mo Pete is 5th. So I'll throw those guys sort of on the screen. Any of those sort of surprise you, Riker?
Oh, Luis Scola, definitely, man. He was like a playoff legend for the Toronto Raptors.
But he started on that playoff run. I don't know if I could call him a playoff legend in terms of stats or anything like that.
Well, listen, how many exciting playoff series have we had in Toronto Raptors history, Ben? So I think it's safe. You can basically call anybody a playoff legend. We call Bismack Biyombo a playoff legend. He had like 3 good games. So
hey, Biz is a legend. He's actually one of the furthest players from average, right in between Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard.
Well, who is okay? Well, I guess your model maybe doesn't show who's the least average in like a good direction, but that's what you'd think when you think the least average. You'd think of a guy who's just putting up a crazy stat line that just won't be easily replicated, such as Kawhi.
Yeah,
but I guess volumes speak to those who just can't put up buckets.
Yeah, for sure. Like players that don't have a conventional style will be very far from average, especially where like true shooting and 3-point attempts rate, if that's different from the mean, that's going to affect the sort of rating you get in this model. So the least average player in this sort of prediction with 50 plus players is Damian Stoudemire. Then it goes Steve Novak and Marcus Camby, then Kawhi Leonard, Bismack Biyombo, Kyle Lowry, Chris Bosh. So
wow. You
have a lot of legends up there, and then guys that sort of play different from your sort of average guy.
Do you know who like I'd put at unaverage as well? Just because like the intangible guys like the OG, like Chuck Hayes, PJ Tucker. Like I'm thinking undersized bigs, or like just good defensive guys that don't put a lot of stats on the sheet. You know, you'd think that those guys would stand out in some capacity.
Yeah, no, it's I saw OG's higher on the list in terms of closer to James Johnson and like closer to average, but I can't seem to spot. It's tough to find all the players in here like that, but you know, it's guys that you sort of think play conventionally, attack the rim a lot, are decent 3-point shooters, like shoot them enough, but don't, especially where it's not just the past 5-6 years. We're looking at the overall Raptors history, so guys that probably never shot at the three are getting counted into 3-point attempts rate, true shooting. But I don't know, I thought this was a lot of fun, and we got a lot of cool things we can do with it. One of the next things that I was thinking about doing is building a team and sort of adjusting for position with the most average players at each position, and maybe, you know, make a courtside video in terms of just the all NBA players, seeing which teams put out the best average player on the court. So let me know in the comment section below. Do you have anything you'd like to see specifically, Riker?
Oh, Ben, possibilities are limitless. Let's leave it up to the comment section and some extra thought. Word.
Well, you guys are the best for making it this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. We're going to get more sort of different with the content going forward. Obviously, that's going to be necessary with no basketball in place. So let us know if you like this sort of content style video, if there's any adjustments. Definitely let me know if there's something weird about my code, any way to clean it up or anything like that for programmers out there. So anyways, you're the best for making this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. I think I already said that. Riker, you have any last words?
Cheers.